I am still working through the new Clips album. I cannot wait to do a whole review for you all. But I have one more line on the Kendrick verse of Chains and Whips. Remember how they left off one line from that entire verse? Well, I have it right here. And this is apparently the line that caused Universal Music Group, that caused Def Jam to kick Clips off of their record label and not release this album. And so I want to try to answer the question, were they right to do it? The answer is yes, they were. And no, they weren't. It's complicated. You see, when you're in a corporate hellscape, you can't think about what's right and true. You have to think about perception. You have to think about the bad faith, knee-jerk, shallow as a puddle after 2 seconds of rain thinking. You have to think not as the artist does, not as the poet does, but as the bad faith reactor does. Because that's what the internet is. That's what the world is. It's bad faith reactors given as much power as humanly possible and amplified at all times as much as humanly possible. So in that context, it does indeed say the word Trump and not spare your life in the same lines. Therefore, ipso facto, it should not be released. It is a problem. Tucker Carlson is going to be, and Ben Shapiro is going to be all, okay? And Aaron Brown's going to be all, rick, tick, tick, tick. Okay, that's what we're going to be. But let's study it. Let's I don't know how long this is going to go. I don't even have a script. I don't even have notes. I've just been thinking about this line since I first heard it last night at like 12:02. All right? The issue is Kendrick Lamar's being poetic. Now, when I say that, so I had an interesting, I went out to a baseball game, Go Wings, a minor league baseball game in Rochester. And I was with my friend Matt, who's sort of like a side character on this channel at this point. And he's a professor of music, and I was asking him, what does he think about Dissect? I'm going to be on Dissect's channel next week. And he's like, I like his stuff, but sometimes I think he's trying to go after the answer too much. And so we had kind of a conversation. Sometimes Genius, sometimes Dissect, sometimes myself, right? I'm not free of this. Spend a lot of time trying to give you the answer, what is the poetry about? Now, to be fair to Genius, to be fair to Cole, to be fair to myself, that is part of what we do. It is not all what we do, but it is true. That is most of what people want. They want answers. You clicked on this because you want me to tell you, what does this mean? And I hate to tell you, but I'm going to tell you what I think it could mean. That's the best answer I could possibly do, because there is no way on God's green earth does this mean I think that the former president of the United States should be killed. There's no way to possibly read that from these lyrics, but nor is it impossible to say that it expressly doesn't say that. It actually has poetic license. And the problem is when we want to say this means that. This goes back to my problem with the reincarnation. Reincarnation is not about anybody. To say that reincarnation is about one or two people is to misunderstand the beauty of the song. It is to debase the beauty of the song. It is about archetypes. It is about patterns of history. It is not about specific people. If Kendrick Lamar wanted to make a song about a specific person, he could, I believe, make a song about a specific person. He intentionally didn't. Art is not a mystery. It is not a mystery to be solved. You should not be always looking for clues. You should not be counting words to determine how long someone has been alive. You should not be trying to figure out this goes to that and that goes to this. You can do that. And I do that sometimes too. But that's not the answer. Don't look for answers in poetry. Look for questions. That's what's more interesting. What's the most interesting thing is questions. That's what I tell my students. And you know what? That's what I told my kids. I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus and all that stuff. But I didn't want to push that on my kids. I took them to church a few times. I said, I don't care what you believe. I don't care. I don't care what answers you come up with. You just need to understand there's a question. That's what I told them. And that's what I say to my students about poetry. So let's think about, what does this possibly mean? God gave me light. The rest of the verse isn't really on this. He's taking you on a totally different ride, because he's talking about generations and he's talking about kaleidoscopes in his eyes. I think, this might be referencing the basic idea of God giving light. You could think of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the world and said, let there be light. Or maybe it's Psalm 18. You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light. I think that's what it is. I think it's Psalm 18. That's the Lord is my rock. That's that whole psalm, if you've ever heard that. So that's what God is for Kendrick Lamar in this verse, right? God gave me light. A good year, full of free will. This raises way more questions than answers. If anybody tells you they understand this, I'm sorry, I think they're lying. I don't understand this. I'm going to give you some ideas. I'm going to give you some thoughts. I'm going to hopefully lead you to some questions. But a good year full of free will. So let's just start with the ending. Free will. You might not know this, but the question of free will has been the cause of deaths of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands. I don't know of millions, but like the wars of religion and Christianity, like the French wars of religion between Catholics and Protestants, often the main beef, beyond not believing in the Pope, was many of the Protestants, especially the Calvinists and people who were descended from the Calvinists, believed in something called predestination. What does that mean? I'll tell you. I keep talking like Bernie Sanders. What does that mean? Let me explain. Predestination means, let's imagine you believe in Jesus, okay? Let's imagine that you believe in God. The second you were born, God decided you're going to spend eternity in hell. Or you're going to spend eternity in heaven. Nothing you do throughout your entire life will alter the fact that God has chosen before your birth, before any amount of cognizance or ability or speech or actions, that you are going to go to hell or go to earth. Or go to heaven. So I'm not a big fan of predestination. I'm not a fan of the wars of religion. I don't think anyone should have died over it, but it's a fairly unpleasant thought. So he's talking about free will. So he's saying that God gave him free will. Now, the idea is, do we have free will? Now, some religions kind of try to have it both ways. They're like, God has predetermined if you're going to heaven or hell, but already knows the actions that you're going to take. So I don't know. They're trying to have it both ways. Point is, that's one of the fundamental religious divides of all human history, of all religion. When you die, what's going to happen to you, and do you have any impact on it or not? Free will. God gave me a good year? A good year? Kendrick, what do you mean gave you a good year, Kendrick? A good year? So are you talking about Goodyear tires? Are you talking about Goodyear rubber? Is it tied into cars somehow? Why did you say good year? And it's not just that he had a good year because he won Grammys and stuff, because this was recorded before then. And that's not that. What does it mean? God gave me a good year full of free will? And it's So anyways, he is saying that he made his own choices. So God gave him light, and God gave him, for a limited period of time, apparently, the ability to make his own choices. Now the last line. Trump card. Told me not to spare your life, mother effer. What is the subject of the sentence? Who told him? Okay? Who told him? Are you reading? Okay, tell me. Who told him not to spare your life? Who's the subject of that sentence? It's not Trump card. The subject of the sentence is God, you understand. So God gave him free will. God gave him light. And God told him not to spare your life. So if we take out the word Trump, the Trump card, and everyone hears the word Trump and they lose their mind and they explode. They just say, I don't understand it. Okay? They don't understand it. You take out Trump card, it all makes sense. Because a lot of this album, it's called Let God Sort 'Em Out, which is a question of God choosing whether or not you go to heaven or go to hell. Now, the expression is, kill them all, let God sort them out. I'll talk more about that when I talk about the album. That's the whole expression. Kill them all, let God sort them out. Kendrick's Holy War, Pusha T's Holy War, The whole idea is that everybody needs to die in hip hop. Not literally, not physically. There's not a single hair on anyone's head that is being actually threatened. It is a question of spiritual warfare, spiritual hip hop warfare on people, making sure that they are eliminated as, I gotta say, bad news, everybody. I went to that Rochester Red Wings game yesterday. I think I heard like 7 Drake songs while I was there. They played they played that new song like 3 times. Damn it, man. You can't kill evil. I'm just kidding. It's not evil. Maybe not evil. In this metaphor, he's evil. In this metaphor, he's the devil, and they are the fighters on the side of God. So, God told me not to spare your life. Now, this isn't Drake in specific. This is all the people on the wrong side, all the people who are part of the party that he is watching die, that he mentions earlier in the verse. This is that severity. This is what Pusha T, No Malice, and Pharrell, and Kendrick are trying to do. They are trying to, as hard as they possibly can, eliminate, eradicate bad hip-hop, bad rap music. And what Kendrick is saying is, God gave me light, and God gave me free will, and God told me, I have to kill Drake. Not with guns and knives. Not that. He has to do it with words. He has to do it by saying a minor. He has to do it by calling him a effing colonizer. That's what did it. God told Kendrick, you call Drake a colonizer, and you win a Grammy on that song, and you win a BET award on that song, and you perform that song at the Super Bowl and teach everybody about Reconstruction era racist policy in the American South and how it ties into modern post-capitalism. All right? That's what God told Kendrick. That's what Kendrick heard. You don't believe him? I believe him. He did it. So that's that free will. Now, what about Trump card? Okay, obviously Trump is thrown in here. Jeremy Hecht put forth the very convincing theory that the entire verse is from the perspective of Donald Trump. I think it is simultaneously a good theory that is totally solid and a joke that shouldn't be taken seriously. I think both those things can exist at the same time. I think his argumentation is great. I think it leads to deeper thoughts. I think there are a lot of ways that it really matches up and a lot of ways that it really doesn't with theories like that. I came really close on What Did I Miss of doing a whole joke take or saying that's from the position of Biden. Because aviator sunglasses, who wears aviator sunglasses? Iceman in Top Gun. He's calling himself the Iceman. He's trying to be Biden. He's trying to say that he lost last year and he's very forgetful because he's a super old man. So I had a whole thing, but I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to seem like I was making fun of Jeremy, because I think his point is awesome. I think that is great analysis. I don't think it's true, but I think it ties into true things about this verse and about this art. But this supports his argument pretty hard, the fact that he mentions Trump, right? But he's actually talking about a Trump card. So a Trump card in cards, I think it was first used, I looked it up, in the 15th century in America. It comes from the word triumph, okay? And it's a card, when you're playing a game of cards, it is a card that trumps everything else, that wins no matter what in a suit. So it's if you have that card, you win. So what is the Trump card? The Trump card is his free will given to him by God. You see? That's what the Trump card is. It's got nothing to do with Trump and not letting Trump live because he got shot in the ear. Okay? That's not it. It only makes sense if you're not reading the text as though it's poetry. If you're reading the text as though you don't know words, I understand how this can be a threat to the former and current president of the United States of America, the two-time Gemini. Jeremy's point is really good. He might be right, actually. Come to think of it. Anyways, let me actually get back to that point, because Jeremy's point is exactly what I'm talking about. The idea that it is specifically one thing, I think, is not a good idea. It's kind of anti-poetry, saying I have the answer. But it is one of the answer. What you need to do when you're confronted with poetry is understand it's a pluralistic thing. It is and. It is not or. It is and. You hear it and you say, this could be seen as being from the perspective of Trump. and it could be seen as this perspective on this. And we as human beings, we don't like plurality. We don't like multiple answers. We want to know what goes where. Have you ever tried teaching poetry? I have. I've taught a lot of poetry in my life, and students get really grumpy because they want to know, what does the swan mean in Baudelaire's Swan? It's like, well, it means a lot of things. It's like a symbol of exile. It's a symbol of ridiculousness and modernity. It's a symbol of sort of ancient beauty, but at the same time, like I can't just give you an answer. What does Baudelaire's Swan mean? It means so many things. It means things it doesn't even mean yet. That's what's great about poetry. It doesn't even mean everything that the artist means. It's so free. It's so wonderful. So trump card, that's what I think it is. But obviously, it ties into this basic idea. I do think that symbolically, Trump is embodying a lot of this kind of party mentality, does embody a lot of the negative values and perceptions and beliefs that are very dangerous and bad to hip-hop culture, to Black American culture, to all of American culture. I don't think it's by chance that he says trump card. I think he's trying to be provocative, but I don't think he's trying to be threatening or violent. By the way, Trump isn't his real last name. His real last name is Drumpf. So his last name doesn't even have to do with the etymology of triumph. His grandfather changed it because he didn't want to sound too German. So, hey, just remember that. So anyways, there's my 17-minute video on one single line from a Kendrick Lamar verse on Clips. Now I'm going to go back to listening to the rest of the album. It's good. There's the camera.